Hello everyone, Evasion here, and welcome back to another video. Today's video, I wanted to do a first look at the Subtlety Rogue talents in Dragonflight pre-patch. And I haven't been playing a whole lot of Subtlety just yet, but I have been playing this build that I made in the Battlegrounds, and my character is very undergeared, but it's been pretty fun overall. I kind of like what they've done with Subtlety. It feels very similar to how it was in Shadowlands. Yeah, anyway, let's just hop straight into talking about the talents. Also, check the description because you can actually share builds now, which is really cool. So basically, if you're new to the pre-patch, if you go into the bottom left of the talent window, you can go to import, and you'll be able to copy-paste a string here, which I will link in the description below. If you find video content like this useful, please be sure to give the video a like. It's the best way to support the channel. Anyway, let's hop into it. So we're going to be talking about the Subtlety Rogue talents today. And they've added a lot of new stuff. Some stuff has come back, but for the most part, it actually plays pretty similar to how it did in Shadowlands and earlier expansions. One thing that I really like that they did is they put Shadow Dance into the basic rogue talent tree. Now, I don't think it'll be overly useful, except for like niche PvP situations for the other specs. For pre-patch, we can't really make it to Mark for Death as well, so we're not going to have Mark for Death for pre-patch because you're obviously going to want to have Shadow Dance. I'm not going to spend too much time on the regular rogue talent stuff like Subterfuge. It's really nice to have the Soothing Darkness talent as well, so whenever you vanish or dance, you get 30% of your health over 6 seconds. This makes Subtlety really tanky at the moment. Even for me, who's really under geared, I only have like 80k health in PvP. I think most geared people are over 100. Improve wound poison because we will be using wound poison as a spec. It allows your wound poison to stack a bunch, so it makes like 24% mortal strike. It's okay. 4% more versatility. It's not worth getting anything over on the left side here yet because you really want Shadow Dance. Okay, so Subtlety Rogue talents. We have Gloomblade sticking into the game. I love that Gloomblade's still here. Formerly, Gloomblade was really bad because it shared a talent row with Premeditation and Weapon Master. So this is formerly our entire first row. And both Weapon Master and Premeditation were useful in most of the scenarios. Shadow Blades is a talent now, which is, fine, whatever. Improved Shadow Techniques. This is like, I swear this was like always a thing, but this actually buffs the original effect, so it gives you 7 energy whenever this procs. This makes Subtlety feel pretty fluent. From my a bit of experience in the Battlegrounds, First Dance and Master of Shadows here. These are both really powerful. I think you could do some kind of like burst builds with this. However, the interesting thing is now, with the build that I'm playing, or maybe just in baseline, Shadow Strike actually gives 3 combo points. So if you're getting an extra 4, you're literally getting 7, which is kind of unnecessary between that and Shadow Techniques going off. Especially if you have Premeditation talent, which honestly it leads into this talent. You are pretty much always going to be wasting combo points if you decide to go with First Dance. So I don't think it's actually that great. But Master of Shadows is great because you get that burst of energy, making it less important to pre-pool your energy before you dance, even though, honestly, in retail, that's not really much of a thing. Resources are pretty easy to come by. You don't really have to think too much about hitting your abilities. Deepening Shadows, this is okay. This is like the former mechanic we had where our Shadow Dance comes back off cooldown. I don't believe Dance is as spammy as it used to be in the previous expansions, but we got some more support for moves like Gloomblade and Backstab, which is really cool. Without a Trace, this is a new talent. So there's improved Shadow Dance, which makes it have 2-second longer duration. So that makes Dance into the 8-second ability that most people are used to and familiar with. And there's no longer that extra second on Subterfuge either, so you can't do like a 9-second Dance build like you could in Shadowlands. But yeah, I really like this talent without a Trace. It's kind of like, it feels kind of like we have Prep back from back in the day. Obviously, Prep resets everything, but having 2 vanishes is honestly, as far as like functionality in Arena, having 2 vanishes is kind of the most important part, I would say, of Prep. 2 evasions was nice too, but we don't really need that nowadays in retail. Dark Shadow, this talent was formerly hard to take because it shared a talent row with having 2 Shadow Dance. And the gameplay was more or less just not fluid enough to play without 2 Dance, so most people opted to go towards 2 Dance instead of having Dark Shadows. So it's really cool that we can talent this here now. Also, there's a new talent, Lingering Shadow. So when Shadow Dance ends, Gloomblade deals an additional 100% damage of Shadow, and it fades by 5.6 per second. So when I was playing Battlegrounds, there was some like extended fights where, Dance runs out, and because of the now weaker Deepening Shadows, you don't have as many dances, so there are more times where you're hitting Backstab or Gloomblade if you have it spec'd. And this is actually a pretty big damage increase. I think like there was a couple fights where Gloomblade was like 30% of my damage, and then Lingering Shadows is its own number. Kind of makes Gloomblade feel like a little mini Mutilate, where you're hitting 2 numbers every time you're pressing it. It's kind of cool. Also, Cloaked in Shadows is very powerful, so this is slightly different from how it was. Basically, when you vanish, you don't get this when you stealth now, so that's actually a good change because honestly, stealthing and getting a shield and just not being able to get found and stuff like that, I think it's kind of dumb. But that's kind of like, it's understandable because nowadays there's so many AoE abilities and it's so easy to get found by accident because people are just naturally pressing stuff instead of intentionally trying to find people. Kind of like in older versions of WoW. But anyway, Cloaked in Shadows. So basically when you vanish, you get 30% of your max health. I think this is really, really good. Kind of makes it like more on demand with, you know, as a defensive, you have to vanish out with a bunch of dots on you. It's kind of cool to have this. It'll work really well for that situation. Secret Stratagem. So I don't know why they changed this from Deeper Stratagem, but whatever. So this is our 6 combo point talent, and this also makes your finishing moves deal more damage when they have more than 5 combo points. So I guess it's a little bit nerfed from how it was previously. Formerly, it was just a 5% increase to your finishers all the time, but now you're only going to get that bonus when you're further in. That's okay. With this build, I chose to take Flagellation. They actually changed this, so in Shadowlands, this buff would actually give you versatility, if I remember correctly. But now that gives Mastery for sub, I could see that being really useful, especially if we continue gearing heavy versatility first with Mastery as a side stat for PvP. We have Deeper Daggers, so this is formerly a conduit. This makes it so that the shadow damage portion of Eviscerate and Black Powder will deal extra shadow damage. It also leads into Finality, which is really good. For those of you wondering why I don't have this talented, it's just because I wanted to try out Lingering Shadows, which I was very impressed with. When we get more talent points, I can see this being useful to get. The one thing that does suck about Finality, though, is in the case of an opener, you only really get 30% increase on like 1 Eviscerate. So max, you're going to use like 2 or 3. If you started with 1 pre-buffed, and then you went for like some kind of 3 Eviscerate burst in short succession, then you would get the buff for 2 of them, I guess. But that would take a little bit of pre-planning, and it generally doesn't work out that great. It's still a great talent, though. And there are some other talents now here that are new at the bottom. So, Dance Macabre, okay? So basically, your Shadow Dance increases the damage of your attacks that generate or spend call points by 10%. So, this is really good, but it increased by additional 10% for each different attack used. This is really powerful, but it's kind of tricky. So you'd want to actually utilize Gloomblade and Shadow Strike simultaneously throughout your dance, if I understand this correctly. So it'd be kind of neat to come up with some cool builds to utilize this. I might have to mess around with this talent. But for the sake of trying out sub in the pre-patch, I did not take this. This can be really good, though. In Dark Brew here, your attacks that deal nature or bleed damage now deal shadow damage instead. And shadow damage increased by 10%. This is really good because this talent will actually buff Gloomblade, which is dealing shadow damage. It'd be low-key cool if they made it so that Rupture turned into Nightblade again, like in Legion, because that was kind of cool. Just aesthetically, it doesn't really matter. I'll talk briefly about some of the things I skipped. I think Shot in the Dark could be really good for RMP or setups if you're struggling with energy management. A lot of the other talents I skipped. Quick Decisions is okay. Just didn't really feel like I had the point I wanted to spend on it. Shadow Techniques is okay as well. Shadow Blades is not really the cooldown where you're like, oh man, I can't wait for Shadow Blades to come up so I can win the game. So I just didn't really take this. A lot of the other talents I've missed are AoE oriented things that will be very good in PvE scenarios. Replicating Shadow is kind of cool. It deals initial 20% damage of Shadow and applies to 1 additional enemy. Not really that useful in PvP. And all the left side talents are further affecting backstab and stuff like that. So symbols buffs, these talents are actually pretty good too. They just make it lower cooldown, so 25-second cooldown. This makes you get an extra 5% crit. This could be a talent that's really useful at the start of Dragonflight when we maybe have lower crit values because we don't really go for crit. Inevitability, this makes it so that your Gloomblade and Shadow Strike extend the duration. It's okay. It adds a couple extra seconds, but usually you're trying to win in the first few seconds of your symbols anyway. So the fact that it adds duration doesn't really matter. Usually running away, going for a reset, or anything like that. Sepsis is here. Sepsis could do some decent damage, but it's probably less powerful than it will be as Assassination due to Assassination having many nature damage modifiers. Perforated Veins here. Your Shadow Strike increases the damage of your next Gloom Blade. This could be decent in if you can go like down to Perforated Blades and then still make it to this Dance or Danse Macabre, which is pretty cool. Just notice now that there's an S there, not a C. Guess it's a dance. Anyway, Invigorating Shadow Dust. This is a neat talent, honestly, because this makes it so that you can vanish, having 2 vanishes actually. It can reduce your blind below 2 minutes, which is the most important part. Obviously, it affects every ability, but blind is by far the most important ability affected by this. You to essentially blind, force a healer or someone's trinket, and then you can vanish during that window of time, and your blind will only be 1 minute and 50-second cooldown, giving you a window to blind and win the game where they cannot trinket. That is the most powerful part about Invigorating Shadow Dust. Pretty cool. It's formerly a legendary. The Rotten also formerly a legendary. It'd be interesting to see if there's some kind of gimmick you can do with Gloom Blade, but honestly, it's probably pretty underwhelming. I think that's pretty much all I want to talk about in this video. If you enjoyed me ranting about the talents in Dragonflight, please be sure to give the video a like. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see. I know some people have been asking for a more full guide on Assassin and some rotation stuff on Assassination. I can definitely try to make a quick guide for Assassination and Subtlety, throwing together how I play at the moment. Lots will change by the time we're max level, and I will likely, have some more experience playing the spec. But if that'll be useful to you guys, let me know. And anyway, we'll talk to you soon. Have a good day. Like, comment, subscribe for more, and we will see you all in the next video.